Welcome, Bronco Nation, to my game review for Boise State versus Air Force. Boise State going on the road against a team that time and time again has given them the works, managing to go and get a win against the Falcons today. 19-14 win for Boise State in this one. An incredible win by Boise State. Now, yes, definitely second half letdown and was much closer than it should have been based on the first half stats. But considering that Boise State was not favored in this game, Vegas didn't have them favored. They favored Air Force by 3.5 points, and ESPN was giving Air Force a 60.6% chance of winning this game. So considering all the factors coming into it, considering that George Holani out, which I wasn't tracking, I don't think anybody was tracking coming to this game, and then Genty's having a great game in the first half, and then he leaves for some reason. Again, hopefully we'll have some more news on that coming out here soon, but nothing released during the game. So considering that by the time you get to the second half, your two top running backs are gone, and everything that this game entails anyway. I mean, it's an option team, which Boise State always has struggled against. You're having to play at elevation, at Air Force, which is always an incredibly tough environment for Boise State. The fact that Boise State got a win in this, which most people, including myself, was not predicting, that's what we should be focusing on. I know a lot of people right now are saying it was sloppy. We weren't able to score in the red zone. We made too many mistakes out there. It shouldn't have been as close as it was. I get all of that. I understand all of those emotions, but let's focus right now on the fact that Boise State is 4-0 in Mountain West play, has beaten their main contender right now, considering the teams that are left, for that Mountain West championship slot. And Boise State has a really good chance here going the rest of the season at going undefeated. I mean, they honestly do. When you look at the rest of the teams they have on their schedule, including BYU, who just got crushed by my other team, Liberty. So this is a great day for me. I'm on cloud nine right now because both teams, Boise State and Liberty, not favored in the games they played. And I honestly was predicting losses for both of them, managing to prove me wrong, which I am so happy to be wrong today. Both of them managing to get wins. So I think Boise State can definitely beat BYU based on what Liberty did to them today. And Boise State's got a pretty easy stretch here out the rest of the way. They've got Colorado State, Wyoming, and then, of course, Utah State as well on the stretch. But it really looks like Boise State here has turned a corner. I was saying beforehand when previewing this game that I wasn't sure if Boise State could win this one because they hadn't really been tested yet. The Fresno State, San Diego State, they don't have offensive capabilities, but Boise State's defense was able to stand strong against Air Force today, hold them in the last seconds to 4 and out. And also the offense in the first half with the running back, with Genty, was able to make a good stand of it, even if they weren't able to push it in for touchdowns. So Boise State here, like I said, Colorado State, BYU, Nevada, Wyoming, and Utah State. Boise State's got a really good chance here to finish out the season. We're going to look real quick at the offense, the defense, and the special teams in this one, grade each of their performances, and also look at my 3 keys to the game. Probably going to keep this a little bit shorter than usual because I'm actually under the weather today. So I don't have the stamina that I usually would. But let's get right into it, looking at this offense. Offense overall, it's a tough one to grade, right? Because Boise State, obviously, they went with a very different look than they have so far under the new Cutter era. It's been a very much run-focused offense. But today, Boise State went all in on the passing game. 322 yards of offense, which isn't great. But 207 of that was passing. Only 115 of that was rushing. Now, obviously, the fact that George Holani is out, that's going to hurt your ability to be able to run the game. But you also had Genty in there. Now, he goes out in the first half. Right at the end of the first half. So now you're on to basically your third and fourth string running backs. So obviously that's going to slow you down. But even so, Boise State's found an identity. They've found something that works. It's what Andy Avalos wants to run. It's what makes the offensive line actually look good when the defense is having to factor in that there is basically another running back in the backfield with Taylor Green. We didn't really see him run at all today. 5 rushes for 16 yards. A couple of those were scrambles, not designed running plays. I mean, he really was not a factor in the running game at all. He did have a 40-plus yard run that was pulled back due to a penalty, but besides that, we really didn't see him pulling the ball on the rollout, which has been so effective. I just don't understand why Boise State didn't use him more in the running game. I understand trying to prevent injury, right? You're already down to, he was the second string coming in, and now Hank Bachmeier's gone, so now you're down to 2 quarterbacks basically on the roster here. So obviously you don't want to have your best quarterback injured, but Taylor Green is a running back who can throw. That's what he is. He looked a little bit better in the passing game today for what it was. but he's a running back who can throw. If you take his running ability out of the game, you're not going to be using him to his full potential, and you're just not going to get the best version of Taylor Green. When he's able to run, it sucks the defense in. It allows him to gain some confidence. It allows him to actually get into the flow of the game and open up some opportunities in the passing game, and then he can pass after he's already settled into the game. Boise State's got to find ways to use his running game. They used him at the end when they had to seal the game on the third down. Shows that was in their mindset that they can use him. But it was really, really weird today. I mean, I think maybe it was the fact that they were aware that Air Force controls so much clock, and so they said, we can't do that. We can't be a run. I said coming into this game, one of the reasons I thought Boise State was going to lose was because they are a run-based team right now. And with a run-based team, they just grind up too much clock and too much time, and Air Force is doing the same thing. And if Air Force gets up by a possession or so, you're not going to have a fast-paced offense to be able to come back and counter that. So it almost seemed like Boise State was aware of the fact that Air Force was going to be taking up a lot of time in possession today, and they wanted to counter that fact by being more of a pass-based team today. That, however, while that might be, good thinking, it doesn't work in this context because Boise State just doesn't have the players to be a pass-heavy team right now. Taylor Green is not a pocket quarterback. He is not a guy, he looks better in the rollout. He's not a quarterback. He's a quarterback that looks better in the short passing game where the running game is the main factor and you're playing off the running game. You're using the passing game to set up the running game. You're using his legs, Taylor Green's legs, in the running game, and then as you roll him out, they don't know if he's going to run or if he's going to pass, and then when they suck up to him, then he can throw the balls to the short of the flat, or even in the middle of the field, depending on if the safety's coming down to try and stop him as well. So you've got to use him more in the running game. You've got to work off of the running game. Boise State today trying to go with that passing attack, and it wasn't very effective. 207 yards passing, which is the most passing yards that Taylor Green has had so far. 16 of 24, 207 yards passing and interception. But again, Boise State just not looking very effective. The first half, they actually looked okay because they had Genty out there, which helped, and they were using the running game and the short passing game. They looked very, very good. They weren't able to complete drives. We'll talk about that here in a second. But 4 drives inside of the 25 ending in field goals. But they were still able to move the ball to be able to go out and score points. In the second half, maybe it was the absence of Genty. They said, we got to do something different. But the running game wasn't being effective. They weren't using Taylor Green in the running game, which, you lose Helani and Genty. Fine. Yes, obviously, now you're down to Noah and you're down to Crow, and there was someone else back there as well, number 25, who we haven't seen so far this season, a freshman running back for Boise State. So you're down to basically kind of your bottom of the barrel right now for running backs that haven't seen much of the season so far. So yes, obviously the run game is going to suffer a little bit, but you still got Green. Green is your best threat out there in the running game, and he's one of your top running threats anyway. Use him. Especially when you're out with Genty and Helani, you don't have any choice at this point. You've got to use him in the running game. So Boise State not using the running game effectively in this game, and I think that really hurt them, especially in the second half. I think using Taylor Green's running abilities in the red zone would have made them more effective versus trying to run it up the middle and then maybe throw some balls. Boise State should have been doing some kind of RPO fashion or short passing game, just like they did in that first touchdown that they had when they threw the pass to Hopper. Got him down to the short rollout, throw the pass to the tight end, gets you down the 1 yard line, and then Genty's able to power in for a touchdown. That's what Boise State should have been doing the whole drive. That's the rest of the game. But Boise State going away from that, trying to go to a little bit more of a traditional passing game, which again just does not work with the players that you have on the field. Because even if you had a good quarterback, the fact is that Boise State's wide receivers in a traditional passing game haven't shown the ability so far this season to get open on a consistent basis. So Boise State needs that run-heavy attack that sucks the defense up to then give you opportunities in the passing game as more of a one-off kind of thing, or using the short passing game to complement the run game, where you're using more of your tight ends and your running backs, and maybe your slot receivers on out pass slants and short stuff to the sidelines. That's what Boise State should have been focused on today. I'm going to give the offense overall in this one C+. I think that it was a very rough performance for the offense, but again, a game that Boise State wasn't supposed to win, a game that Boise State was going up against a good defense. So take that all with a grain of salt with the fact that Boise State's performance in this one probably looking a little bit worse considering the team that they were playing was very, very good on defense. So maybe they play somebody else, maybe they have a better performance on offense. But I think the biggest issue with Boise State today is that they went away from their identity. Boise State is finally found their identity, which is being a run-based team, back-to-back 300-yard rushing games. Boise State has clearly found that identity as being a run-based team. They need to stick with it. Obviously it's different than what any Boise State team has ever done before, but it's working. Boise State shouldn't try to go away from that. Obviously, it hurts when you have Genty and Halani out, and hopefully Boise State can get them back going forward the rest of the season. But regardless, the thing that makes your offensive line look good, the thing that allows your wide receivers to get open to actually be able to make plays, and the thing that actually works off of your quarterback strength is the ability to focus on the running game. Boise State needs to do that more going forward. All right, let's look at the defense here. Defense, kind of a tale of two halves, just like the offense, in this one. The offense, obviously, struggling in the second half. Defense, a little bit of the same thing. Now, defense held Air Force to 7 points in both the first half and in the second half. So points-wise, it was a pretty much similar affair. But in the first half, defense was dominant across the board. Now, they were helped out a little bit by the fact that Air Force was playing really badly. They had like 4 unforced fumbles in the first half. Boise State able to recover one of those, but Air Force jumping on the other ones. But the pitch wasn't working. The reads weren't working. Air Force really kind of shooting themselves in the foot. But on top of that, Boise State was just playing really, really good lockdown defense. I mean, you had plays across the board. Canijo, Matlock, Jones, Skinner, Shea Oladipo. I mean, they all played huge in this game throughout the entire game. So Boise State definitely playing well on defense the first half, held Air Force to 84 yards total in the first half. That's it. 84 yards in the first half. I've never seen a Boise State defense that strong against an Air Force team. It was a fantastic performance. 47 yards rushing, 37 yards passing, 2 out of 6 on third downs, 2.2 yard average per rush. Against Air Force, Boise State held Air Force to 2.2 yards average per rush. That is in the first half. That is absolutely insane. Boise State doing a great job of shutting down the running game. Now in the second half, again, a little bit of a switch there. Air Force kind of finding them something in that last drive, the last half of the second quarter there. Air Force really kind of starting to get themselves more in rhythm, using the quarterback run game more effectively, which Boise State really struggled to cover against for most of the game, even after Zeke Daniels hurt his ankle and had to come back and was maybe not 100%. He was still being effective in the running game. So Boise State definitely having a little bit of trouble. Whoever had assignment on the quarterback, definitely not either being able to get there because of the blocking or maybe missing their assignments. So Boise State definitely struggling there against the quarterback threat. So Air Force a little bit more effective. It ended up with 271 total yards, 96 yards passing, 175 yards rushing. So again, they only had 47 yards rushing in the first half, 175 yards rushing in the second half. So definitely much more effective in the running game, or 175 yards rushing overall. So over 120 yards total in the second half there for Air Force. But again, that's total offense. Boise State held Air Force, who has traditionally ran all over Boise State, to 271 total yards, 96 yards passing, 175 yards rushing, 6 out of 14 on third downs, and and held them 0 for 1 on fourth down conversions. So Boise State in this one on defense, they definitely won the game on their defensive effort. 19 points on offense, that's not going to win you a lot of games, but it does when you have a defense as strong as this one. Boise State has traditionally struggled against the option, and they did at times, kind of between the 20s, but they really, they didn't panic. We'll talk about my keys to the game here, but that was one of them, is just don't panic. Air Force is going to get yards, bend but don't break, and come up big and get those sacks, or Air Force will make a mistake, or they'll have a penalty. We'll talk about that at the end here. A lot of penalties on Boise State as well. But something will happen. Boise State giving up a lot of yards here and there, but coming up strong when it mattered. And especially there, we saw that on that last drive by Air Force, which gets extended by a penalty on special teams, which we'll talk about here in a second as well. Gets extended by a penalty on special teams, but Boise State able to force a fourth down stop against Air Force in the red zone, basically winning the game there for Boise State in the end. So defense overall in this one, I'm going to give them an A-. Probably maybe deserve something in the B range, but the fact that Boise State won this game because of them, the fact that they held Air Force to only 2 touchdowns in this game, and the fact that they held Air Force to under 300 yards of total offense and under 200 yards rushing, which again, Air Force is a running team. That's it. That's pretty much all they do. Occasionally hit you up. Boise State definitely very vulnerable against the passing game. Pretty much anytime Air Force wanted to go to the air, it was there. So Boise State has been vulnerable all year against the passing game, and that was no different against this Air Force team. However, Boise State doing enough to win this game. definitely strong comparatively to other Boise State teams against his option offense. Great to see Andy Avalos get that first win against Air Force. Remember, Brian Harsin took about 4 games to get it done against Air Force. So Boise State finally getting that win against Air Force, kind of get that monkey off their back, that revenge from last season. This is a huge win for Boise State against a team that if they lost to, there's a good chance Air Force could run the rest of the table, and Boise State would be looking at maybe being taken out of contention for the Mountain West Championship game, depending on what happens down the rest of the season here for Boise State. So this was a major, major, major win by Boise State here, and the credit goes to their defense. All right, last real quick here, special teams. Special teams, now the savior of this game and the savior of the special teams grade is going to be Jonah Dalmez. Great game by Jonah Dalmez. I said coming into this game that if Boise State won this game, it would be because of their special teams. And that is true. In this game, Boise State won this game because of Jonah Dalmez. 4 field goals. Boise State getting into the red zone or getting into inside the 25 4 times and forced to kick field goals. And Jonah Dalmez trots out every single time and nails every kick perfectly. A long of 51, 4 out of 4 on field goals today, 12 points for Boise State, which is definitely, Boise State only won this game by 5 points. Jonah Dalmez coming into this game, had never had a game where he had kicked a game-winning field goal or where his contribution to the game had meant the difference in the game. Well, I said that there was a chance he could get that today. If Boise State won this game, it would be because of the kicking game, and that proved 100% true. Also, Master Football, shout out to him. Great call on this when we previewed Boise State's, or we looked at the rest of Boise State's games. We did a mid-season check-in for Boise State. He actually predicted a 50-plus yard field goal in this game for Jonah Dalmez, and that's exactly what happened today. So Boise State winning this game because their defense holding Air Force back on the points, but offensively, Jonah Dalmez putting the points on the board for Boise State. He gets the game ball in this one. Boise State winning the game on his leg. 51-yard long and 4 out of 4 kicking. Now, the rest of the special teams performance was a disaster. Punting today, 3 punts, average of 40.7-yard punts, 1 inside the 20. Worst performance overall by James Ferguson since the OSU game where he punted for, I think it was 37-yard average. Now, the issue here is that he's getting the ball to strike on the ground. He's getting it past the return man, or he's getting into a place where the return man's not going to pick it up, but it's not rolling. This is an Aussie punter. Aussie punters are known for their punts that maybe they don't go as far as everybody else, but when they strike, they roll. You get like another 20 yards. And that's why Aussie punters are so exciting, because most of the time they can punt about as far as a normal punter. You're going to get about 35, 40 yards in the air at least. But then when their balls strike, because they're rolling out and they're kicking it from the side and the ball is rotating a little bit differently, you're going to get that rollout. Well, that's not happening here. So James Ferguson, I definitely think he has the potential. I'm definitely still excited about him, but something was off today in this game. Something's been a little bit off this whole season. Obviously, freshman, new to American college football here at this level. So he needs to work on some things. He was subbed out last game for Whale. I definitely think that he's a better punter than Whale is, but he's got to figure some things out. Definitely not a strong performance by him. Return game was a non-factor today, except that Boise State had the sloppiest penalty I've ever seen on special teams. They trotted out 2 number 7s. You had Noah, because Boise State was in a prevent defense, so they had Noah, linebacker, up at the line, and then they had return man, another number 7 back for Boise State to return the punt, and it was just terrible. This is why I hate having 2 number 7 or 2 double numbers on starting positions. I understand that you've got so many players and you need to maybe have some double numbers here and there. But the fact is that you've got a lot more numbers to work with now, because you can use 0 and you've got the triple number with 100. You can use triple digits for offensive linemen now, so the 100 numbers. But I'd never like it when you have 2 starters with the same number. I think it doesn't look good for television. I think that number is important. I think it identifies who you are. So I've never liked that. I didn't like that they had Caples and Noah both with number 7 in the first place. And then you end up getting in situations like this, where you have 2 of your starters that may be needed to be used in certain situations, even though they're on different sides of the ball. But you've got a starting defense out there. You've got to trot out your punt returner obviously coming in, subbing in for Helani, but your second string punt returner having to sub in for Helani, and now you got 2 number 7s, and now you have a sloppy penalty produced. So definitely on the coaches in this one, almost lost the game because of it. So Boise State very, very lucky on this one, and Boise State able to make up for it on the back end because Noah, number 7, who was part of the penalty that extended the drive, actually had the pass deflected in the 4th down stop that gave Boise State back the ball. So Boise State getting a little bit of redemption there on the back end. But I've never liked the fact that teams will do this where they'll have 2 starting players or 2, upper level players with the same numbers. I don't think it looks clean, and I think it leads to some of these situations where there's confusion, and I just don't like it. So Boise State, this one's on the coaches, but it definitely falls onto the special teams because the coach is part of the special teams there. So overall, special teams grade is tough because the punting game was a disaster, and so was that penalty was just absolutely atrocious. Those both deserve to be Fs. But the kicking game won this game for Boise State. So I'm going to give it a B+. Because the kicking game was an A+, while the rest of everything else was probably in the F to D- realm. So I'm going to give it a B+ because the game-winning element of Jonah Dalmez, he's kind of in a category of himself. He's getting an A+. Everyone else is definitely on the lower end of the grading spectrum. All right, real quick here to wrap it up because I am going longer than I said I would. But real quick here to wrap it up. Keys to the game: play for 3rd and short. Boise State doing this very well in the first half where they were running the ball and then using the short passing game to either make the 1st down or to set themselves up for a goal line attempt or for a 3rd and short. Boise State going away from that, however, in the second half where if they first run is okay, but then they use the 2nd down either to go for the 1st down right away, maybe the longer pass, or they're going for another run on maybe more of a stretch play that's, again, trying to bust out big yardage versus just trying to focus on getting a manageable 3rd down, getting a methodical drive that you could just pick one up after the other. And every time that Boise State ended up in a 3rd and long, they ended up in a field goal, or they ended up having to punt the ball away. Boise State was not able to convert any 3rd and longs that I was tracking. I mean, I think in the second half they might have had one. I think that they had at least one in the second half they were able to convert. First half, no 3rd and longs. They were 0-5 on 3rd downs. And the second half, again, not that successful at all, converting on 3rd and long. So Boise State got into 3rd and long. It was, forced into obvious passing situation, which this offense is not set up for, and it's like going up against a good defense in Air Force. Boise State not set up for that situation. So Boise State, I'm going to give this one a C+, because first half I thought maybe fulfilled this key, whereas the second half I don't think they fulfilled it very well. Second, bend but don't break. A+. A+ on this. I mean, it was exemplified in that last drive for Air Force. It looks like the game's over, but Boise State doesn't panic. They let Air Force, do their thing, but they stop them when it matters. They get them in the loss of yardage. They get them on the penalty. Boise State doesn't panic, and they get Air Force looking backwards, and Boise State's able to win this game because they didn't bend, because they didn't break. So again, Boise State great throughout the whole game in this concept, like we just talked about, but especially there in that last drive. And then the last one is have the up-tempo passing game on standby. Boise State actually came out with the up-tempo passing game and kind of used it throughout the whole game, which again, I didn't like, not because I don't like the up-tempo passing game, not because I don't think it might be the most effective form of offense. I just don't think that this offense, this team, is built for the up-tempo passing game. So Boise State using this one much more than I thought they should. This might be an NA because they didn't really need to use it, but I'm going to give this one, I think, it's interesting because, again, this key was not meant to be for the whole game. This was supposed to be have it available if you need to, if you're in a hole and your running game offense is just taking too long and you come down to a point where you've got to score 2 scores quickly in the fourth quarter to come back. Again, Boise State never got into that situation, so I'm going to give it an NA, but I am going to make it very clear that I don't like the fact that Boise State used the focus on the passing game in this one. I think a run-based offense using Taylor Green's legs would have been more effective. But thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on this game. It was a great game for Bronco Nation, a great win for Boise State. Again, the rest of the season looks very, very bright. This was Boise State's first big test, and while I wouldn't say they passed it with flying colors, they passed it. And Boise State, once they get their running backs healthy, and hopefully George Halani, he has a bye week. They said that it was an injury he aggravated in the last game. He dressed for this one. So hopefully, give him another week. He'll be back. Whatever's going with Ashton Jeanty, we didn't see a major injury happen to him. Hopefully he's back and healthy. Either way, Dirk Cutter, sorry, major name pronunciation there. Dirk Cutter has done a great job of revamping this offense. The focus definitely needs to be more on the running game. Like it has been, that's been what's most effective. But he's done a great job of revamping this offense. Boise State's schedule looks a lot easier down the stretch here. I'm excited for what the rest of the season holds for Boise State. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, go Big Blue!